Hi, everybody. It is Saturday, August 26th, and I saw you guys a couple of nights ago, just before Hurricane Harvey has hit. So I told you I would post some information on Blackboard for you to kind of finish out our first night's class. So you can probably hear some squealing in the background. That's the little vent hood on the top of my roof squealing. The wind's picking up again, but I think everything's fine. Just some more rain. So I wanted to finish out Monday's class, and talk to you about the importance of reading. So here's one reason reading's important. Give you a minute to look at that. Reading's important just for the fact that so much out there, so much information out there that is conveyed to us is conveyed through words, through sentences, through signs, and literacy is critical for that. Just a little funny to get us started. But I want to show you this information. This is from a book written by Dr. Terry Lassane. It's called Naked Reading. It's not about reading naked. She is a professor of library science at Sam Houston State University, one of my friends and colleagues. So here's some data that she put together in her book. We know that the average reader, and I'm talking about an adult reader, reads about 300 words per minute. So if you think about reading 15 minutes a day, that is 4,500 words a day. If you read 15 minutes a day, 7 days a week, that's 31,500 words a week. If you read 15 minutes a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, that's 1,638,000 words per year. The average book contains about 75,000 words. So if you do the math, if you read 15 minutes a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, that comes out to approximately 1,000 books in a lifetime. So think about the number of books you've read. Where are you about that 1,000? And think about your kids. Do you think that the students that you're working with read this fast? Do you think they read 300 words a minute? What about your struggling readers? Do they read this fast? Why does this matter in terms of the STAR and the EOC tests? Think about the word counts on those tests. So on English 1, the base test is 3,000 words. English 2, it's 3,300. English 3, it's 3,500. If you think about other content areas, think about how reading factors into those tests as well. So our kids have to be fluent and they have to have some stamina. I'm not saying they have to be speed readers, but they do have to be able to read at a good pace for those tests. But going back to 75,000 words in a book and that being approximately 1,000 books in a lifetime, if you think about what Dr. Lassane writes in that book is the so what of this. So here's some data that she pulled from the National Assessment of Educational Progress results. So what the data from that assessment show, and that's a wide sampling of students from across the United States who take the NAEP assessment. What they found is that for kids who didn't read, who read 0 words per year, their percent vocabulary growth was 0. For kids who read 100,000 plus words per year, they showed 50% vocabulary growth on the NAEP. Those who read 400,000 and more words per year grew 60%, all the way up to 1,800,000 or more words per year, they grew 90%. So if you go back to this table right here, in 52 weeks a year, 15 minutes a day comes out to 1,638,000 words per year. We're looking at kids who could grow between 80 and 90% in their vocabulary, growth. That's a lot. Basically what the research shows us is independent reading. Reading is the single best way to improve your vocabulary. Not worksheets, not vocabulary lists. not quizzes. Reading is the single best way to improve your vocabulary. So I told you that this semester's course is going to focus on reading. That's why. We want kids who can take care of us when they grow old. We want kids who are literate, who are thinkers, who understand a lot of the information that's coming out at them. So we want them to be lifelong readers. So I want you to think about yourself. For yourself, when do you read? Now, I know that you guys are in college right now, and you're also student teaching, and so it's hard to find time to read. But I want you to be thinking over the next couple of weeks before I see you again, how can you build time into your schedule for reading? What the research shows is that as teachers of reading, we must read. Just like next semester, I'm going to talk to you about as teachers of writing, we must write. So we have to be models of reading for our kids. We need to read a variety. We need to share that reading with them. That doesn't always mean that what we're reading is appropriate for them to read, but we need to be talking about our literacy. For your students, think about when do they read? How can we build time into our schedules at school for reading to happen? And I also want you to think about some of the reading that you're doing with Penny Kittle's book, Book Love. How does she assess her students' outside reading? That's one of the things that we're going to be talking about, is how do we assess our kids' reading? Do we use a reading log? Do we talk to them? Do we use some other kind of accountability measure? I want you to be thinking about that over the next 2 weeks. And now's a good time also to be talking to your cooperating teacher about it. It's the beginning of the school year, so they're starting to put those routines into place as well. So in Book Love, Penny Kittle talks about the reading log that she uses with her class. There's all kinds of reading logs out there. One that I have used, I'll see if I can find it real quick in my Dropbox. I typically ask kids to write down the title of their book, okay, I can't find it there. I asked them to write down the title of the book, the author of the book, the page they started on, the page they stopped on, how many minutes they read, and how many total pages they read. They don't have to write down their starting and stopping page, but I do want to know how many pages they read. But the time that they read is important to me, not because I'm grading them on whether or not they read 30 minutes outside of class, but I want to see how much they can read in an allotted time. If we're trying to get our kids to improve their fluency, then how much they read in a specific time period should increase, okay? I will find the reading log that I use, and I'm going to post it here on Blackboard for you in this week 1 folder, and I'd love for you to try using it over the next couple of weeks with your assigned reading or with your independent reading, and then bring it back with you the next time we meet face-to-face. I'm going to jot that down real quick so I don't forget. So reading log. I'll post that for you in just a little bit. So here's some ways that I keep track of my reading. The main way I do it is on Goodreads. So let me take you there. If you're not on Goodreads, I'd love for you to sign up for it. It's kind of like Facebook for readers. So I have different people that I'm friends with on Goodreads. And then it shows you. So here's what I'm currently reading. I'm currently reading a book called Revolution by Deborah Wiles. It's a young adult book set in the 1960s. I'm also reading this book, Stitch and Bitch, The Knitter's Handbook, Instructions, Patterns, and Advice. I'm trying to learn how to knit. I'm reading this book called Flying Lessons and Other Stories. So those are the books that I'm currently reading. If I click on my books up at the top, you can see Here's the books that I've read. So this is a picture book, Go Go Gorillas, The Girl You Left Behind. I don't know why I put it on there twice. This graphic novel, Poe, Stories and Poems. You can just scroll down and see all the different books I've read. If I go back home, you can see that I've set a reading goal. My reading goal for 2017 is to read 350 books. So far I've read 207. I put all the books I read on here, even picture books. I teach children's literature, so that's part of my job, is to read picture books. So I'm getting there, but it also tells me that I'm 20 books behind schedule, which that's a little frustrating, but maybe I'll catch up this weekend. So you can see it's just an easy way to keep track of the books that you read. Friend me. If you're not on Goodreads, join Goodreads and then search for me under Margaret Hale, and then we can see what each of us reads. We can kind of follow each other that way. So that's one way I keep track of my reading. There's a couple of other ways. There's a couple of other sites like that are similar. So Shelfari.com is one. LibraryThing.com is another. I think I have an account on LibraryThing, but I don't really track my books there. I just want to track my books in one place. But this is one that many school districts will allow kids to use. I think for Goodreads, you're supposed to be 18 or over to use it. And so sometimes school districts will block it. But LibraryThing and maybe Shelfari too are ones that I know teachers use in the schools. So when we think about assessing kids and holding them accountable and helping them find the right books, we have to know our students and we have to know their interests. So if you think back, if you took children's literature, LED 3320 in the College of Ed, at one point you talked about reading interest inventories. That's something that I sit down and do with students at the beginning of every year when I'm working in a school. The reading interest inventory asks kids about all kinds of things about who they are outside of class. You want to know all of their interests so that you can make the best recommendations possible. The rule of thumb is to get as specific as you can. Another way to understand readers is just to, just to talk to them. Talk to your kids. Ask them what kinds of things they're interested. Talk to them about the best books they've read, the last book they read, why they liked it. You got to talk to your kids. Another way to understand readers is to make friends with your librarian. Ask them about their circulation records. What are some of the most popular books in the library, the ones that are checked out the most often? Another thing you can do with your librarian is ask to look at some of the library journals that they subscribe to. So the Hornbook, School Library Journal, Book List, those three journals specifically are all about book reviews, okay? And your librarian has access to them. Readability, you can always look at the readability levels on the book covers, but you can also find the readability levels of different books using Renaissance Learning, Lexile levels, looking up their Fry readability levels. These links are clickable for you, so you can always check those out. Keep in mind, though, that a lot of times we read below our level and sometimes we read above our level. So please don't limit your students to only reading at their level. The last thing I wanted to mention is closed tests. You talked about this in LED 3320 as well, but this is when you're trying to see if a particular book is right for a reader. I will come back to this next week. So for next week, you're going to read chapters 3 and 4 in Penny Kittle's book club. You're going to choose your independent reading novel and email me for approval. You're going to go under week 2 and look at the video for the Unit 1 project. Watch that. You're going to complete your reflective prompt number 1 under journals. And the next time we come together is September 7th. When we come on September 7th, I want you to have read all the way through chapter 7 in book club. So you kind of have this coming week to read chapters 3 and 4, and next week I want you to, the following week, read chapters 5, 6, and 7. Thanks for tuning in.